All right, so let's talk appliances. Like we all use them. Toasters, blenders, coffee makers. Can't live without them,
Yeah.
right? But, and maybe this is just me, but have you ever stopped to think about how those everyday appliances actually get from like a factory floor to your kitchen counter?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The import-export world behind it all. It's pretty
You'd a
fascinating.
whole hidden world, and thankfully we've got some insights to guide us. We're diving deep with RoleCatcher today.
They're great because they're more than just like another job board.
Mhm.
It's like having a cheat sheet for anyone who's actually serious about, building a career.
Totally. And the career we're looking at today, import-export manager, that really stood out to me from RoleCatcher's guide.
And for good reason, too. What I find really fascinating about this particular career is the skills it demands. You need super sharp attention to detail, but also like this ability to think strategically, almost like
Global chess man.
yeah, exactly. A global chess master, but with cargo ships and customs forms.
And speaking of, RoleCatcher gets into the nitty-gritty of what these managers actually do. And honestly, it's a lot to juggle. You're setting up procedures for, like, this constant stream of goods across borders, making sure every single thing is compliant with a million regulations, all while somehow coordinating suppliers, distributors.
No, and let's not forget about all the other stakeholders who have a hand in getting those appliances from point A to point B. And that's where that balance we were talking about, the detail-oriented stuff, Andy, the strategic thinking, that becomes absolutely crucial.
Because one little mistake could mean.
Disaster, potentially.
Hello.
Imagine you miss a tiny compliance detail on, say, a shipment of electric kettles headed for a new market. Suddenly, you're not just dealing with some delayed kettles, you've got a domino effect on your hands. It disrupts the whole supply chain, could cost the company tons of money, and let's not even talk about damage to their reputation.
Yeah, that's not good. That's definitely a stress dream I don't need to be having.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you're the manager who can, like, anticipate market trends, say there's suddenly a huge demand for air fryers in a certain region, well, you've got the chance to position your company for a major win.
Being ahead of the game. And it makes you realize how many different skills you need in this job. RoleCatcher, they emphasize how this is about way more than just shipping boxes around. Like you said, it's strategic.
Absolutely, and that's why you've got to be a skilled negotiator, a critical thinker, and you have to have a good grasp of cultural sensitivity. That's so important in this line of work.
Okay, negotiation, I get that.
Yep.
But I'm assuming we're not talking about haggling for a used car here.
Not quite. Think bigger. Imagine you're on a tight deadline to get, say, a whole shipment of those toasters we mentioned into stores for a big holiday sale.
Okay, the pressure's on.
Big time. And right when you think you're in the clear, a typhoon hits near your supplier's factory. The port's closed, your shipment's delayed. What do you do?
Oh, man. There's a lot at stake.
There is. That's the kind of high-stakes negotiation these managers face all the time.
Talk about thinking on your feet.
Yeah.
And, this really brings me to another skill RoleCatcher mentioned. Critical thinking. They had this one scenario in their guide. Imagine a whole container of blenders shows up, but half of them got damaged in transit. What happens next?
Oh, that's when those critical thinking skills really come into play. Because
Yeah.
you've got options, right? Do you send the entire shipment back, even though that costs time and money? Do you try to negotiate with the supplier, show them it wasn't your fault? Maybe you think about fixing the blenders locally, but then you've got to figure out the logistics, the costs.
So many moving parts, and each choice leads down a different path.
Exactly. That's why this job is so demanding. You have to think strategically, but also act quickly.
You've got to be cool under pressure, that's for sure. And it's not just about spreadsheets and shipping routes either, right? This career, it seems like you need some serious people skills, especially when you're dealing with different cultures all the time.
You've got that right. It's funny you should mention that because RoleCatcher actually found that 90% of import-export managers they surveyed said that cultural sensitivity was absolutely crucial to their success.
So it's not just about knowing when to bow or, what the proper dining etiquette is, although I'm sure that helps.
It definitely doesn't hurt, but you're right. It goes way deeper than that. It's about grasping those unspoken rules, the nuances in communication.
How business gets done, how decisions are made. It's different everywhere you go.
Exactly. And on top of that, you need to stay updated, which, let me tell you, is a job in itself.
Because things change so quickly in the global market.
All the time. This isn't the kind of job where you learn everything in your first year and then just coast. Regulations, especially for things like electrical appliances, they change constantly. What's okay today might be completely obsolete tomorrow. You've got to be on top of it.
It really does sound like continuous learning is key. And, speaking of staying ahead of the game, I was looking at RoleCatcher's take on the pros and cons of this career path.
Uh,
And, yeah, there's the potential to earn a good living, maybe even some international travel perks.
oh, absolutely. The travel can be a huge perk for the right person.
But you also need, like, some serious resilience to handle the pressure cooker of this world. Constant deadlines, global logistics, it seems like.
It's not for everyone, that's for sure. You're juggling a million things at once, often across different time zones. And then there are always curveballs, unexpected disruptions.
Yeah.
And through it all, you've got that pressure to meet those shipping targets. I think RoleCatcher actually found that something like over 70% of import-export managers they surveyed said they work more than 40 hours a week, regularly.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. No time for sleep.
Not much. So yeah, managing stress, like finding ways to de-stress, it's not just a nice to have, it's essential for survival in this field.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's your secret? How do you keep cool in this kind of job?
Well, for me, it's having that outlet outside of work, like a way to totally disconnect. Some people meditate, others exercise. Me, I just need to unplug and spend time with my family.
Just completely shut off.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Finding ways to recharge, de-stress, it's crucial, I think. Not just for your sanity, but honestly for your success in this career, too.
You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Exactly. And speaking of, career progression, RoleCatcher actually does a pretty good job of breaking down the typical path in this field. And, it makes sense. You start as an assistant, move up to a coordinator, then supervisor, and eventually you reach that management level. But what I found really helpful was how they broke down the actual tasks at each stage, made it all feel very real.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, oh, you'll get more responsibility. It's another to actually picture yourself doing it.
Exactly. So let's say you're starting out, right? Entry-level assistant. You're probably spending a lot of time with spreadsheets, mastering those shipping documents. You're the one who makes sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Because those little details, they really matter.
They can make or break a shipment, right?
Absolutely. And then, as you gain more experience, maybe move into a coordinator role.
You start to see the bigger picture a little bit.
Exactly. Now you're coordinating with suppliers, you're negotiating shipping rates, maybe even dealing with customs brokers. So it becomes less about the minutia of the paperwork and more about the actual flow of goods.
More strategy involved.
Exactly. You're like the conductor orchestrating the movement of all those appliances across the world.
Okay, so now I'm really curious. Paint me a picture of that management level. What does an import-export manager actually do on a daily basis?
Well, at that point, it's less about hands-on logistics and more about leading a team. You're the one developing those long-term strategies, looking for new markets. You might even be the one hopping on a plane to visit factories overseas.
Sounds exciting.
It can be. It's a very demanding role, but the potential for growth is huge. And a lot of that growth comes down to taking initiative, seizing opportunities when they arise.
So it's not just about waiting for things to happen. It's about making things happen.
Exactly. Maybe you volunteer for a challenging project or you take on a new initiative. Even just attending industry conferences, just to stay in the loop and see what's new. It's all about showing that you're proactive, that you're adding value.
It's about, like you said, showing initiative, proving you can handle whatever comes your way. And that's where a platform like RoleCatcher, I think, can really give you a leg up, wouldn't you say?
100%. What they do so well is they don't just show you jobs, right? They actually give you the tools and insights you need to stand out, which is so crucial in this market.
Yeah, and one thing I was really impressed with was their AI CV analysis tool.
Oh, yeah, that's a game changer. It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
Because it's like, these days your CV is probably getting, scanned by an algorithm before a human even sees it, right?
Exactly. So RoleCatcher, it's almost like they're helping you crack the code. Their AI looks at your CV, compares it to people who are already successful in that field, and it gives you really specific suggestions to make yours stand out, both to the algorithms and to the actual recruiters.
So you're not just throwing things at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right. It's all about strategy.
And then there's their interview prep resources. I mean, talk about a lifesaver.
Oh, it's huge. Think about it. You walk into an interview and you've already practiced answering questions specifically designed for that role, maybe even that specific company.
You're not just prepared, you're confident. There's a difference.
Huge difference. Because at the end of the day, This career, it's about so much more than just, checking boxes on an application. We're talking about understanding this complex global flow of goods. We're talking about bridging cultural divides. And ultimately, we're talking about getting people the products they need no matter where they are in the world.
Exactly. Whether it's that high-end food processor or, like we said at the beginning, just a simple, reliable toaster. These appliances, they make a difference in people's lives.
And that's really what it all boils down to. So yeah, if you're someone who wants to make a tangible impact and you're ready for a challenge, maybe this is the career for you.
Food for thought. Big thanks to RoleCatcher for the insights. And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And be sure to tune in next time for more insights and advice on navigating the world of work.